Welcome to today's edition of my podcast. And pretty much we're going to get right to this. The man that makes all the decisions for this, it's pretty much Daryl Morey. I have to say, I don't understand what he is doing. We're going to talk about a couple of reasons. How we're going to do this, we're going to react to the offseason so far. We're going to break it down to what happened in the NBA draft. Will Morey trade or re-sign James Harden? Will this be a gap year? Number 4, can we get value for James Harden? And most likely, and a big mistake, Daryl Morey's blind spot when it comes to James Harden. So we're going to start off with the most pressing thing right about now, the NBA draft. I wasn't expecting anything to happen in the NBA draft. The Sixers didn't have any draft picks. We didn't have any draft picks because of the tampering for... Oh my goodness. Daniel House and PJ Tucker. We lost draft picks for that. And then we also traded draft picks for Daniels. So there wasn't really much for the Sixers to be able to do. Although there was a leak in terms of the draft board where it said that the Sixers were going to try to buy a second round draft pick. That never happened. So we pretty much signed some undrafted free agents, and that was just pretty much it. I'm not really going too deep into them because at the end of the day, they're undrafted free agents. I would like to see them. Hopefully, they can be able to develop and contribute to the team like the players did for Miami, but that waits to be seen. Now, the most important part is, at this moment in time, I really don't know. I have to say that I would prefer James Harden to be traded. I don't think you can recover from what he did or didn't do in the series against Boston because he pretty much quit. In Game 6 and Game 7, he pretty much quit. And there are a number of things that James Harden have been exposed on that it's come to a head. And so I would like to see James Harden be traded. See if we can get whatever we can. See what we can get. Whether we can get some veterans mixed with some young players, probably some draft picks. We'll see. When it comes to this, though, I'm going to assume Morey is going to take his time to try to be able to get value with this. The problem with this, though, is that we know James Harden. James Harden can just put on the fat suit at any time and cause a lot of issues. So would this be a situation, a repeat of Ben Simmons, where you ask James Harden not to play and wait until until you are able to get a trade to trade him? We've seen in 2 situations when it came to Houston and when it came to Brooklyn that he can pretty much stink up the joint to accelerate his trade situation. So I really don't know when it comes to that, how are we going to do this? And there's only so many players that we'll be able to get. I wasn't expecting to get George Niang. They weren't going to be able to match what Cleveland offered. When it comes to Jalen Daniels, I have to say I'm pretty annoyed because Morey traded for him and also gave up a draft pick, and you gave up Matisse Thybulle. And so it's not the fact that you gave up Matisse Thybulle, it's also you gave up a draft pick too. And you didn't even try to I'm not sure. I think Daniels had bird rights. I think he had bird rights. I'm really not sure. So that's what really annoyed me when it comes to that. And the way things are going, I have to say that I think this is going to be a gap year. I know Philly fans may not, I know Sixers fans may not want to hear that, but this may be a situation where we have a gap year. I forget the podcast I was listening to, but Keith Pompey was sitting there saying that in the 2024 season, 23 and 24 season, the Sixers will only have 2 players under contract, PJ Tucker and Joel Embiid. And that's if they do the option for Springer. So when it comes to that, I'm thinking that they're going to sit there and just play this out, see how it goes, and be able to reload during the next off season in terms of because you'll have 2 max contracts. You'll be able to re-up Maxey. You'll be able to get another max player, or you'll be able to get a re-up Maxey, and then just surround Maxey and Joel Embiid with a number of good role players to be able to fill out the roster. I know fans don't want to hear that, but that's a strong possibility that they may happen. And with that, there's a strong possibility if it's not to Joel's liking, Joel may ask to leave. Personally, I don't think he's going to. And so we'll see how this goes. It's just odd when it comes to the Sixers, all the things that they've had to deal with when it comes to Joel Embiid and stuff like that. And James Harden is in the last year of his contract, so it's an expiring contract. That's something that's appealing to teams. But at the same time, teams, let's use the Clippers for an example, they really don't want to give up anything of substance like a Terrence Mann or a young player like that for James Harden, especially in a situation where you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have to try to re-sign James Harden, because the stipulation right now, the way his expiring contract is, he can't re-sign until the end of that year. So that team will be in a situation of, should we re-sign him or not? And also, he quit in the playoffs. Even in James Harden at the top of his powers, he still struggled in the playoffs. And this goes into the way that he plays. I'm going to do a video talking about that, but it goes into what Kobe Bryant said. Kobe Bryant said that his game is not playoff. It doesn't go translate well into the playoffs, and it doesn't. When you're in long series and you have teams game after game after game being able to scout you, that's when it comes to a point where you really have to have a deep bag. And when it comes to James Harden, he doesn't have a deep bag. He keeps the ball, he's in front, and the defense sees him, so the defense can key up. And he's not an efficient shooter. I think the highest he probably 47%, but he's like a career 43% shooter. So he's not efficient. And when you take his speed now, it puts you in a dilemma where you have to see what you can get in terms of James Harden. Now, it may be a situation where Morey is going to wait, and when teams get desperate and they see that they're trying to get themselves over the top, and they may have to give up some things in order to get James Harden. You have to get teams in desperate situations. Right now, teams are not desperate. The Clippers are taking their time. They got Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Russell Westbrook. Now, me personally, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George right now aren't the most reliable individuals because they always get hurt. It may be a situation where you may have to add a third team into this. And last but not least, when it comes to Morey, I have to say everything that's going on now is Morey's fault. When you look at the situation when we were trading Ben Simmons, everybody was sitting there saying that Tyrese Halliburton wasn't up. He wasn't offered. But according to U.S. News, what date was this? U.S. Today, the Sixers Wire article by report says, Kings offer Tyrese Halliburton to Sixers and Ben Simmons talks, by Kay Carlin on May 8th, 2023. And it says that, per Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports, Sacramento Kings had Halliburton on the table before they decided to send him to Indiana Pacers and the Matonis Sabonis deal. The Sixers were focused on Harden. Harden, at the peak of his powers, is still a devastating scorer that claimed MVP honors under Morey, previous roster tinkering in Houston, and a playmaker. Philadelphia brass held out to the pair with Joel Embiid during those months in the 2021-2022 season in which Ben Simmons lingered on the trading block. It didn't matter that Sacramento, according to lead sources, had put future All-Star Tyrese Halliburton on the proverbial table or the conversation with Atlanta that would have shed Tobias Harris's contract along with Simmons' disinterest in sticking around in Philadelphia. So, long story short, Daryl Morey has made some bonehead decisions, and he's made bonehead decisions with his loyalty when it comes to James Harden. When he traded for James Harden during Oklahoma, that was a surprise trade because nobody didn't know that James Harden was on the block, and also people didn't expect James Harden to blossom into the player that he became. When it comes to Tyrese Halliburton, people knew that Tyrese Halliburton was a player, and Daryl Morey did not have that same forethought when it comes to picking up Tyrese Halliburton, but he picks up James Harden. With that said, I'm not saying that James Harden is a bad player. He's not a bad player. But your backcourt would have looked a lot different with Tyrese Halliburton and Tyrese Maxey than James Harden. You had a lot more speed, and Tyrese Halliburton is 6'5". You still would have had a big guard, and you still would have had a guard that can do double digits and assists, and you would have had a guard that wouldn't have been locked down by Jaylen Brown because he's slow, and they would have had more pace when it comes to the team. So when you look at this situation, this all goes to Daryl Morey. I know there are some people that sit there and talk about Doc and say this is Doc's fault in terms of Daniels being traded and stuff like that. Daryl Morey makes the trades. Daryl Morey makes decisions. And these decisions that he made or didn't make is pretty much playing itself now. So it is what it is. And if you like what I'm hearing, like what you're hearing, subscribe, click that like. I would appreciate that. And I have to say thank you for those who subscribe and thank you for those who comment. I appreciate it. And those who comment, I'll try to respond as much as I can. Talk to you later. I'm out.